Madam Web has finally been released to the public, and I was so excited for this movie. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I finally got to see it, and I must say, this movie was absolutely horrible. It almost seemed destined to fail, from its bad marketing campaign that people took as a joke, to Dakota Johnson all but saying in interviews that this movie was awful. You can't be surprised at the lackluster response with ads like this running.
Those girls have no idea the power they can unlock. I will kill them first.
Get down!
Madam Web.
Whole new level of crazy these days.
Despite the studio's attempt to generate buzz about Madam Web, no one knew what this film was about, or who Madam Web was, or who this movie was even made for, other than people online who want to meme it, like me.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
He was in the Amazon with my mum when she was researching spiders right before she died. Do you remember that going viral?
Why did that go viral?
Madam Web, I think, is part of the Sinister Six cinematic universe, also including Venom and Morbius. Although there's nothing really that connects these films aside from a couple of vague references to Spider-Man. There's a Daily Bugle truck that goes by a diner in one scene. There were people in the theater when I saw this film both times. Yes, I saw this film twice. And I was more perplexed as to why anyone else was there in the theater. Why would anyone willingly endure this film?
You're gonna love it.
So many of you were wondering, what is this movie about? This movie where Ezekiel Sims was in the Amazon with Madam Web's mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
I don't have any footage since the film just came out, but I will use screenshots to help me explain what happens. The film starts with basically the worst prologue ever. Basically what's described in that line from the trailer.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders.
Ezekiel Sims is the name of the bad guy, and he wants this special spider in the Amazon that gives him powers. Madam Web's mom finds the spider first, so he shoots her. Before she dies, she is rescued by CGI spider people who live in the trees, and they bring Madam Web's mom to a cave to give birth to Madam Web. Strangely enough, the movie takes place in 2003. I didn't know why at first. I thought, was Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man gonna show up or something? There were a lot of snap zooms in this film, just a ton. Take a shot every time there's a snap zoom and you'll probably be dead by the end of the film. Cue the pointless side rolls you can always come to expect in these films, featuring Adam Scott and Emma Roberts. Adam Scott is Uncle Ben, and Emma Roberts is supposed to be Peter's mom? It was nice they popped in for a paycheck, good for them. There are some other supporting roles worth note, such as Sosha Mamet, who's in this film to sit in front of a computer screen and read off a bunch of exposition. And you think I'm exaggerating that every single one of her scenes is in front of a computer screen? But no, every single one of her scenes is in front of a computer screen and she reads off a bunch of exposition to the villain. The villain says, "I'm going to pay you a fortune." How much money, they never say. They just keep it very vague. Madam Web goes back to the hospital and the kid of one of her patients made her a drawing, and she doesn't really want it. She's like, "Oh, I don't want it." Wow, what a hero we can all look up to, huh? She eats Chinese food with Adam Scott, and she looks at her fortune cookie, and her fortune isn't finished on the paper. Ben is like, "We can't order from this place anymore. Their printer is broken." Do they print fortune cookies at the restaurant? I thought they ordered them from like a fortune cookie factory, and then they did it there. So I don't, that line doesn't make any sense. There are a couple scenes in this film where we see Madam Web in her apartment, and these scenes were clearly reshoots. There's one scene when she's in her apartment and she's feeding her cat, and she says, "Us strays gotta stick together." Really important stuff. This scene is cut weird in the promo to not include Adam Scott, probably because he's embarrassed to be in this shit. So the way this scene is cut in the promo, it just looks like she's helping her clone out of the car.
Hi, sir. All right, I'm gonna cut your...
Then she falls off a bridge, and she's in the ocean and drowns and dies for 3 minutes. Somehow this triggers her to see into the future, and it gives her powers. So she starts having visions of the future. It isn't really clear how her powers work. As she says in the film, it just happens. It just happens.
New York City is a whole new level of crazy these days.
Basically, she has visions whenever it's needed for the story. Now let's talk about product placement, because what's a Sony Spider-Man movie without shameless product placement? Insert the Pepsi advertising, which not only comes in during a barbecue scene where Dakota Johnson is holding a Pepsi can, but also in the climax of the film where they fight on the giant Pepsi Cola sign in New York City. There's Calvin Klein product placement. I didn't really notice any Sony product placement though, so that's new for them. Madam Web goes back to her apartment and she realizes she can change the future because she opens a window and saves a bird from hitting the window and dying. The villain seduces and kills this woman who has access to unlimited surveillance capabilities. He dresses up like Spider-Man and he wants to kill these girls because he can see into the future, and in the future they kill him.
Ezekiel is able to see that all three of us develop into the superheroes that ultimately kill him.
The actor who plays Ezekiel Sims is so fucking bad in this movie. He has some of the worst lines in the whole film. It's a good thing you didn't know that today is the day you were going to die. He wants the girls dead because he wants to rule the world? It's very one-dimensional. I was never clear on the villain's motivation, I just found it boring. The villain goes to kill the girls while they're on a train, and Madam Web has visions that they're going to be attacked, so she gets them off the train. The bad guy goes to chase after her, and there's a big action scene. The girls go into a cab with Madam Web that she steals from a guy who got out of his cab to thank a customer for a tip. Then the girls wonder if they're being kidnapped by Madam Web. Well, probably, but that doesn't matter, because we're moving on. This is when I can break down the characters of the girls, because they're all so terrible, and they don't make any sense. Sydney Sweeney is a shy girl with glasses, who's also an orphan. The girl from Dora has her dad deported out of the United States, and the other girl's parents just don't really give a shit about her. The girls' backgrounds are not effectively shown, and they don't come into play in the film's narrative at all, really. So how old are these characters supposed to be? Are they in high school? Is this summer break? Don't you have to be in school or something? In addition, there's supposed to be this weird kind of convenience part of the story where all of them were destined to meet each other at some point in the beginning of the film. Dakota Johnson gets flipped off by the girl with authority issues, Sydney Sweeney is related to one of Dakota Johnson's patients at the hospital, and Dora lives in the same building as her. But none of this is explained and it doesn't come into the story at all.
There's all of these different webs that she's putting together.
Unfortunately, I don't like any of these people, and I don't care about what happens to them in this film. They go to hide in the woods. Would these girls really be able to camp out in the woods without being prepared all night? So they're camping out in the woods, and Madam Web's just like, I'll be back in a few hours. Why does she have to leave the girls for a few hours? Because she has to drive all the way back to the city so she can go back to her apartment again, and we can get more exposition. There's a random Beyonce ad on a building. She looks through her mom's journal that I guess she has, and she finds a picture of Ezekiel and her mom, which is the reveal to her at least that her mom knows the villain. But wait, has she never seen this picture before? Has she never looked through this journal? In all this time, she's never tried to find out who this guy is? Madam Web is reading this journal and reading off the exposition. During this scene, her cat is there. She's asking her cat questions and her cat is answering them. It's unbelievable. I mean, is this a joke? Meanwhile, the girls run away to a diner and then they dance on top of a table. Wouldn't someone who works there tell you to get down? Hey, you damn kids, get off the table. Madam Web searches through the forest and can't find the girls in this really boring scene. The girls ultimately die, but Madam Web decides to hit the reset button. Let's try that again.
Let's try that again.
Just as the villain is about to kill them, Madam Web crashes through the front door of the diner with her cab and hits the villain. One of Madam Web's superpowers is to hit people with vehicles, as she does it multiple times in the movie. They end up back in the cab with Madam Web again. A little repetitive, don't you think? Why did they let the same fucking shit happen again? One of the bad guy's powers is when he touches you, you get poisoned with a neurotoxin. Madam Web and the bad guy can also talk psychically for some reason. There's one iconic scene where Madam Web teaches the girls CPR, so they can use it in the climax, of course. And then the girl who hates authority figures, after 30 seconds of being taught CPR, says, you know, I've never told anyone this, but you're a really good good teacher. Madam Web has to go to the Amazon, so she leaves the girls with Adam Scott while she goes to Peru. Adam Scott apparently has the most secretive house in the entire world because even though the bad guy has unlimited surveillance capabilities, he just can't find Adam Scott's house. Fast forward to Madam Web's trip to the Amazon, where she meets the guy who used to know her mom and helped her give birth to Madam Web. I don't know how he found her, I guess he just wanders around. He tells Madam Web the great power comes great responsibility line from Spider-Man, except it's like the inverse of it. It makes no sense. It's like first you get the responsibility, then you get the power. See, Dakota Johnson's mother used a special spider she found in the forest while researching spiders to cure Madam Web as a baby of any possible health complications she would have in the future, such as a chronic muscle disease or something. This also gives her superhuman strength, the ability to be multiple places at once, and of course the ability to have visions of the future. Then Madam Web has a flashback to her as a baby and she sees her mom, and Madam Web's like, "Mom, why do you hate me so much? What gave you that impression that your mom hates you?" Then it's revealed that her mom doesn't actually hate her, and she went to the Amazon because she wanted to find a cure for Madam Web's disease. Then Madam Web goes into the flashback and hugs her mom. So is her mom actually experiencing this, or is this a vision? Did Madam Web actually time travel to the past? None of this is ever explained. The audience is left with more questions than answers.
There's all of these different webs.
At some point, Emma Roberts' water breaks and she has to give birth, so they have to leave. Then the bad guy spots them, and Madam Web has a vision that they're gonna die. So she steals an ambulance, and she hits the bad guy with the ambulance. And Dora uses the defibrillator and hits the ceiling with it, and that creates an electric shock that knocks the bad guy off the roof of the ambulance. Yep, like I said, the climax ends in the building with the Pepsi-Cola sign on top. The building is super dangerous, but Madam Web just doesn't care. It has the cheapest, shittiest climax I've ever seen. It looks like they spent $15 on the whole thing. In the final confrontation, the bad guy takes off his mask for no reason. There's a corny-looking digital quick zoom when Dakota Johnson says a line. I forgot exactly which one, but it's toward the end. It's really funny. The villain is crushed by the Pepsi sign. They even show this in the trailer. They didn't really care about spoiling things. Madam Web falls off a building and has rock flung in her eyes underwater or something, and she becomes blind. Madam Web becomes an instructor to the group of wannabe superheroes as she adorns a sick pair of glasses and goes around in an electric wheelchair like Professor Xavier. But hold on, where's the iconic line about her mom researching spiders in the Amazon? It's nowhere to be found. It got cut out. And there isn't even a post-credit scene. I feel like this movie will have a long-lasting meme status, and it will end up becoming kind of a cult classic in a way. I know they wanted to set it in 2003 so they can make Emma Roberts Peter Parker's mom, and it would make sense with the Tom Holland Spider-Man, but really, there's no reason for this movie to take place in 2003 whatsoever. She drives by a Blockbuster at some point. There's some late 90s music. It could have been set in the modern day, and it wouldn't have made any difference. The villain having unlimited surveillance capabilities definitely would have been more plausible if it was in a modern day setting. It's safe to say that the future of the cinematic universe is hanging by a thread. If Madam Web is any indication, the Kraven the Hunter film is going to follow suit and flop even harder than Madam Web. They'll continue to make Venom movies, of course, because those make money, but just stop with the rest of this fucking bullshit. Madam Web, Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, these movies are fucking dog shit. Madam Web isn't just a bad movie, it's a complete and utter waste of time, money, and brain cells. 1 star for Madam Web, with the caveat that it's really funny if you're watching it as a so bad it's funny movie, but as a film, it is easily one of the worst of the year.
Madam Web's a different type of superhero story.
You're gonna love it.
Hey, thanks for watching my review of Madam Web, and stay tuned for more content such as my best and worst films of 2023. Be sure to become a patron of Ralph the Movie Maker, or become a member of Ralph the Movie Maker on YouTube. I think that's it. Thank you so much for your support. Bye-bye. I have nothing else to say, so I'm just gonna sit here.